The Philippine government scraps its plan to reduce physical distancing in public transportation. Presidential spokesman Harry Roque tweets, Secretary Arthur Tugade just manifested in an interagency task force meeting that the 1-meter rule in public transpo remains until President Rodrigo Duterte decides on the matter. This comes a few days after the Transportation Department began implementing the reduced distancing rule. When the IATF met with Duterte Monday night, September 15, some officials admitted their reservations about the Transport Department's plan. But Roque defends the DOTR. He says none of the DOH's representatives raised their concerns during a September 7 meeting. Duterte is expected to announce his decision on Monday, September 21. As of Thursday, September 17, the DOH reports 3,375 new cases, bringing the total to 276,289. Meanwhile, a study from the humanitarian group Oxfam shows wealthy nations representing 13% of the global population have already bought up more than half of future COVID-19 vaccines. Oxfam analyzed deals struck by pharmaceuticals and vaccine producers for the 5 leading vaccine candidates currently in late-stage trials: AstraZeneca, Gamaleya Sputnik, Moderna, Pfizer, and Sinovac. Oxfam calculates the combined production capacity of these 5 vaccine candidates at 5.9 billion doses, enough for 3 billion people, given that all 5 future vaccines are highly likely to require 2 doses. Supply deals have so far been sealed for 5.3 billion doses. Of these, 2.7 billion have already been bought by developed nations and regions such as the US, UK, European Union, Australia, Hong Kong and Macau, Japan, Switzerland, and Israel. The Philippine military wants full access to the construction of cell sites that Dito Telecommunity will build in its bases. Military Intelligence Chief Jose Niembra says the AFP plans to add more safeguards into the security clause of its contract with Dito. The AFP wants 3 things: only Filipino engineers to work on the cell sites, for the engineers to be present during installation and maintenance, and free access to the facilities anytime they want. Dito is 40% owned by Beijing-run China Telecom, in consortium with Udena Corporation and Chelsea Logistics, both owned by Filipino businessman Dennis Uy. Dito defends itself over fears that it may be used by Beijing to spy on the Philippine military. Dito Chief Administrative Officer Adel Tamano says, quote, "We are not at war with China. Espionage is truly misplaced. If we see an American, Belgian, say, participating in some private enterprise, why are alarm bells not ringing?" Senator Risa Ontiveros says she's taken aback that the AFP has to ask for free access to its own premises. Ontiveros says, quote, "If the company inside our camps weren't 40% owned by China, we wouldn't even have to think, let alone worry about loyalty or which side they'll favor." International church groups condemn the widespread killings and other human rights violations in the Philippines. In a statement released on Thursday, September 17, at least 20 groups warned these abuses stem from the deadly rhetoric of President Rodrigo Duterte and his government's disdain for dissent. The statement says, quote, "We are concerned that a general climate of impunity has been synergized with the Philippine President's unabashed incitement to violence and regular calls for state forces to punish legitimate dissent by the citizenry." The groups also expressed concern over the new anti-terror law and the continued harassment of activists and human rights defenders. The church groups call for an end to the killings and the observance of due process in the Philippines. The church groups join calls for the United Nations Human Rights Council, or UNHRC, to launch a probe into rights abuses in the Philippines. The UNHRC is convening for its 45th session from September 14 to October 6. It is expected to include the Philippine situation in its agenda following the report of UN Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet. Bachelet earlier said Duterte's drug war was being carried out without due regard for the rule of law, due process, and human rights. Justice Secretary Menardo Guevarra denies President Rodrigo Duterte's continuous support for Francisco Duque, prompted him to go easy on the health secretary. Guevarra leads the probe against state health insurer PhilHealth. Earlier, Senate President Tito Soto said he was dumbfounded that the Justice Department spared Duque.
Not at all, Pia. Walang epekto yon as far as the task force is concerned, more particularly the DOJ. As I repeatedly have said before, we will only go by the evidence presented before us. So kung meron kaming makita, so be it. Kung wala naman, wala. Pero kung meron, meron. Meron kaming nakitang conviction against him, we'll include him and probably the rest of the board if need be.
Duque, who chairs the PhilHealth Board as health secretary, was recommended for a mere admonition by the task force. Meanwhile, the task force recommends the filing of charges against other top PhilHealth officials, including resigned President Ricardo Morales. Lawmakers have repeatedly called for Duque's resignation. The DOJ-led task force will be looking into anomalies in PhilHealth's legal sector next. A post claiming mainstream media did not report on malversation cases filed against former President Noynoy Aquino, former Senator Sonny Trillanes, and Senator Franklin Drilon is false. Facebook page Paglilinaw posted a screenshot on March 25, 2019 of a blog post on the malversation complaints, falsely claiming the lack of reporting. This claim was flagged on Tuesday, September 15 as potentially misleading by Facebook's fact-checking tool, ClaimCheck. Contrary to what the post claims, at least 3 mainstream media outlets reported on the 274 counts of malversation filed against Aquino, Trillanes, and Drilon in October 2018. ABS-CBN published a report on the malversation complaints on October 15, 2018. It was also reported by the Philippine Star, published online on philstar.com on October 16, 2018. CNN Philippines published an article on the malversation complaints on October 15, 2018, but only reported 272 counts, not 274. Mainstream news media like Rappler have also been covering the Disbursement Acceleration Program issue even before it was first declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court in 2014.